Hi listeners, just a quick heads up. The quality of the following episode, and likely the next 3 episodes ahead, is not the standard of our usual recording quality. That's purely because we recorded in a different temporary location in a batch of 4. So just a heads up, you might notice, you might not notice, but just for anyone who's wondering, yeah, there is something different, and we've done our best to make it sound uniform, but we'll be back to our standard quality of recording in the very near future. So enjoy the episode, it's a good one, and yeah, thanks for listening. Hi everyone, and welcome to an in-person recording of Dystopian Simulation Radio. I'm your first host, Linz.
And I'm your second host, also in the same room, but at the other end of the very long table.
Very long, thin table. Hi,
Hi,
Chris.
Linz.
I'm waving.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you in person. We had a little bit of a hiccup. I spilled my taurine all over the desk. Spilled my monster. But yeah, we're in person.
We
Chris.
are. We've not recorded in person since before the birth of my son, over 2 years.
Oh my god. Are you
No,
kidding?
I think so. No, slightly afterwards. I remember the early days when he'd wake up and cry.
Oh my gosh. This is so crazy, actually. I can't believe it's been that long.
Excuse me while I open my beverage.
We've got all the caffeine because we are going to pull an all-nighter to record episodes in advance. So if we get progressively more insane over the next 5 episodes, that's why.
Exactly. We are going to be recording the next 4 or 5 episodes tonight. So, yeah, strap in for the ride. Linz, before we get started, do we need to talk about anything? I don't know. Do we?
You're looking at me as if we do.
I don't know. Oh, Patreons.
Yes.
Patrons.
Do we have a list? It's your turn to read the list.
Oh, it's my turn. Really?
Yeah. I don't know how my pronunciation was last episode. Didn't get any feedback on it.
Oh,
yet.
I will hear. I will hear. You get a free pass. Me? Oh, no.
I don't get a free pass. I work hard not learning how to pronounce those.
I'm definitely going to pronounce everybody's names right in this.
We're also on very slow Wi-Fi.
Okay, so let's go backwards this time. So, thank you very much to our patrons. We couldn't do this without you. You literally keep the lights on. Thank you to Philip Hoffman, Pip, Emily Medeiros, Riaz K, Wesley Akers, Michael M, Only Child, Drake Haldig, aka Paul McCartney, Linz Gibson, Kelsey Carruthers, Greer Reether, Mike Wright, Lindsay Kelly, Michael Loveland, Jamie Sook, Creepy Paper, Cash Barodius, Cropley Crab, Riff Cult, Heatherwyn, Graves, Devon Sweatshirt, Ordained Sinister Minister, Polk Daddy, and Patrice. Thank you very much.
That sounded good to me.
I mean, I think especially that one in the middle there.
Yes.
That's how they pronounce it. In the South.
Oh.
Yeah,
yes.
yes.
I don't know where we've got these characters from today that we keep slipping into. But yeah, if you guys want to follow along with the images from today's episode, you can do so on our Instagram, which is at d.s.radio. I'll say that again, which is at d.s.radio.
Yes, and you do get access to our Instagram account, our exclusive Instagram account that we always post on, which is at DSR Friend Club, and you get all of the lovely goodies over at our literal Patreon, which is patreon.com/
Dystopian Simulation Radio.
There you go. So you can join us there. If you join them at Bob's Balls tier, then you get all the lovely goodies that we provide. Additional episodes, shorts, and general bollocks.
And if Bob's Balls means nothing to you, go to episode 1.
Go back and put yourself through the audio quality of episode 1.
Woo!
With our $7 bargain bin Black Friday Amazon microphones that we bought to test things out.
Which Chris referred to back in the days as C-3PO's penis.
Yes.
Yep, they were golden.
Goldenrod.
They were golden. Right, so I guess we'll get into it.
So, Linz, this is one of your stories today, so I'm excited because I don't have to do any work.
Yeah, isn't it great when you just get to sit back and listen? Well, you might have to do a little bit of work.
Shit.
Chris. Figuring out what's going on here.
Okay.
Okay. So, Chris, grab some protection because we're about to... When I'm looking you in the eyes, it's much more difficult to do these lines. If you knew why that was all the more funny to us right now, we'll not reveal why. If you did know, you'll know why we can't get through this. Okay, I'm gonna start again. Chris, grab some protection because we're about to go on an adventure to Loveland.
Oh, okay.
Although it sounds like the name of an establishment somewhere in Pattaya, it is actually a U.S. city in Hamilton, Clermont, and Warren counties in the southwestern part of Ohio. Loveland, Ohio, or the sweetheart of Ohio, as it's endearingly known. One night in 1955, a businessman driving home from work at around 3:30 a.m. spotted something along the Little Miami River. He leaned closer to the window and squinted his eyes in disbelief as he saw what he described as 3 grotesque-looking creatures with lopsided chests, wide lipless frog-like mouths, and wrinkles rather than hair on their heads. He could smell these creatures. He said they smelled strongly of fresh-cut alfalfa, with a slight trace of almonds. He slowed to a stall and observed the creatures for 3 whole minutes before starting up his engine again and driving straight to the Loveland police station. Here, he reported exactly what he had seen to Police Chief John Fritz. Although completely bizarre, Fritz had taken down a lot of police reports in his time, and he believed that this man was being genuine. The creatures were not apprehended and put in jail for the crime of being weird and ugly.
Be a bit difficult in Miami.
And the story simply went away in the media. Just a strange blip in the Loveland Police Department archives. But these creatures, although dormant, were not gone. Some say they never left. Before we go on here, Chris, what do you think about this 1955 sighting of, what did we say? 3 grotesque looking creatures with lopsided chests, wide lipless frog-like mouths, and wrinkles rather than hair on their heads.
I mean, if it wasn't for the 1955 thing, I would have just said they're just regular old Miami meth heads.
Jesus.
How's that taurine for you?
It's lovely.
But I mean, are these sort of like swamp people? Are they?
What the fuck is swamp people?
No, the inbreds that live in the swamp.
Excuse me?
That's where inbreds live, right? According to every piece of media I've ever seen.
All right, so the police chief believes him. He's heard loads of statements over the years. He believes him. He saw something, right? What do you think? You're literally, that's your answer, swamp people.
I mean, I think it's either like some, people who, live in off the grid and maybe are not kind of your regular average Joes, or maybe these are frog people, like kappas in Japan or something.
Can you explain the kappa to me? Is it like a pervert frog?
I mean, that's sort of offensive to them, but yeah. So essentially, kappas are a kind of cross between a frog and a turtle, but they're like toddler sized. They're like yay high. I'm venturing up to about but they're not very tall.
Okay.
Nobody, but they are incredibly strong. and they have a serious set of etiquette that goes along with them. So they have a tiny little cap on the head, not like a baseball cap, like a upturned plate, and this has to have water in it all the time. So the only way to defeat one is to challenge it to a sumo match, knock it off kilter, and knock the water out of its head, at which point it will scramble back to the water. They're also obsessed with, let me get this right, they love cucumber and they love assholes. But I can't remember if they like sticking cucumber up. But if you're going swimming in Japan in a swamp,
bring a cork.
Yeah, make sure to just watch that asshole.
Right, so you're saying it's either what was it, swamp people, or a kappa?
Yeah. So what it actually does is it enjoys cucumber, but it's a way to get it away from you. So what it will do, if it has the chance, is it will suck your soul out of your anus. So to get away from it, you got to give it cucumber.
Some people would pay for that, Chris.
Oh, I mean, plenty of people would. Hotels up and down the country.
Lucky for us, we do have a visual interpretation of what the man saw that night. And this was sketched by Leonard Stringfield, who was a UFO researcher.
No relation to Peter.
No. So, would you like to see this picture, Chris?
Of course.
So if you could describe to the people, Chris, what it is that we're looking at here.
Okay, so we have some Terrence and Philip looking motherfuckers here. So there's three of them, although one of them is kind of cut off by this image. They have misshapen chests, which are kind of bulging out from the sides, but they do have seemingly 2 arms, 2 legs. One of them is the center one is holding something above its head. That's kind of in this image actually glowing a little bit, and yeah, they've got, as you say, wrinkles on the head that could be mistaken for hair in this crude drawing, and it's annotated creatures about 3 foot tall, witnessed by Robert Hunnicott, May 25th, my birthday, 1955. Not my birthday.
They were about 4 feet apart.
4 foot apart and then 5 foot apart.
Yeah. So
Road.
Yes, everything's labeled road. So they appear to be wearing jorts. Yeah, jorts. Like you said, not the greatest artist. You'll see this at d.s.radio on the Instagram if you're curious. Yeah, 3 little fellas, big bulging misshapen chests, Homer Simpson style line hair, and one of them is holding up what appears to be a glow stick.
Yeah.
And he looked at these for 3 minutes.
And this was the best he could come up with.
No, this is the UFO research.
Oh, this is the UFO research.
Yes, he's drawing by dictation. Because of these sketches and also Leonard Stringfield's own investigation into the Loveland incident, we know that the anonymous businessman was actually named Robert Hunnicott. In Stringfield's report, Inside Saucer post, which has been graciously posted online on nicap.org for us to refer to, we'll link that in the description, we see that Stringfield refers to Hunnicott as RH. Stringfield and his associate, Ted, met Hunnicott at a bar in Ohio to discuss the events of that night for their report. They noted that he was well-dressed, well-mannered, and appeared calm and trustworthy of nature. So, over a martini, Hunnicott relayed the events of that night as they happened. So, we're about to get a lot more detail.
About 4 a.m. on a March night in 1952, while driving through Branch Hill on his way to Loveland, R.H. saw in the beams of his headlights what appeared to be 3 men kneeling at the right side of the road. You got a problem?
No.
His first impression... we were doing so well. Right. This was going to happen at some point. We can do this. We're professionals. His first impression was that somebody was hurt or some crazy guys were having fun. Curious, he stopped his car and got out for a better look. To his surprise, he discovered that the figures were non-human and around 3 feet tall. They were not green, RH stressed, but rather a greyish colour, including the garments. These tight-fitting, stretched over a lopsided chest, which bulged at the shoulder to the armpit. Over this bulbousness hung a slender arm, noticeably longer than its opposite member. Save for only a fleeting impression of something baggy, the legs and feet were obscured by weeds and brush. Their heads were ugly, said R.H., reminding him of a frog's face, mostly because of the mouth, which spanned in a thin line across a grey smooth face. While R.H. thought the eyes, without brows, seemed normal and the nose was indistinct, the pate on the head had a painting-it-on-like hair effect, like a plastic doll. It was corrugated or like rolls of fat running horizontally over a bald head. According to R.H., the middle biped, and the one closest to him, was first seen with his arms upraised. They were raised a foot or so above the head, he said, and holding a dark chain or stick which emitted blue-white sparks jumping from one hand to the other. As R.H. approached, he said, this biped then lowered its arm with the chain, as if to tie it around its ankles. R.H. said he wanted to get closer, but by the time he had reached the front fender of his car, the little men made a slight unnatural move towards him, as if motioning me not to come any closer. For about 3 minutes, R.H. said he stood still, just watching, too amazed to be afraid. Next thing he remembered, he was on his way to Fritz's office. Okay, so some more details here.
A lot more details. There's a lot to go over here. So, hearing this description, the sketch was actually pretty good. I mean, that is a lot of information. A lot of information. So, the heads were ugly, mean, but okay. The hair. So, it's either hair like that of a painted doll or rolls of fat. I mean, I feel like you'd be able to discern.
It's night, you know, hey. He probably was on his 6th whiskey at this point.
Yeah. So, eyes without brows, normal, nose indistinct, grey, long limbs.
I mean, if you ignore the fat on the head or whatever it is, these sound kind of like grey alien.
Right. I feel like, you know, UFO, aliens.
I mean, it could be cryptid, could be UFO, it could be any of these type of things, but I mean, yeah, it sounds like your garden variety grey.
Not, I wouldn't say garden variety. I mean, usually it's like a straight up grey, but this is like, I don't know if they've crashed their ship, but they've been through some shit. Like, ripped clothes, disfigured. I mean, I'm kind of like grey, but also froggish. Stringfield also reported that there were multiple UFO sightings in Ohio at this time. This isn't the end of the Loveland creatures, though, Chris. It took a while for anyone to see them again, but they were seen. In 1972, they would rear their lipless, balding heads once again. So in March of 1972, there were 2 separate sightings by 2 different police officers 2 weeks apart. First sighting was that of patrolman Ray Shockey. Shockey was 23 years old, and he was driving along Riverside Drive in the Little Miami River, just like the guy in the 1950s, and it was around 1 a.m. Suddenly, a creature ran out in front of his car, and the vehicle's headlights illuminated it. He described it as an animal, 2 to 3 feet tall, with dark green or blackish scaly skin. He stared, slack-jawed in shock. The creature made a run for it, cheesed it over to the other side of the road, rested its hand on the guardrail, and climbed over, scuttling off down the embankment on the other side. To prove it wasn't all a dream, Shockey got out to find faint scratch marks on the metal barrier and saw a tail going down the embankment. Now, we do have a couple of interpretations to look at, but what do you think about this encounter 20 years later?
I mean, this one's ever so slightly different. We've got tails described here.
Mm-hmm.
It's described as more reptilian.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose if you're going to try and, reason it, what kind of reptiles do you find in Miami? Is this a gator? A gator but to learn to walk on 2 legs.
Thinking a gator. A bit of a small gator.
It's a baby one.
Baby gator?
Baby gators.
Do you think he would have known what a gator looked like?
No.
I think if it was a gator, he would have seen, I saw a gator run down the embankment.
But I mean, if this is some kind of mutant gator, perhaps something's got into the water in Miami, and a couple of gators had got flattened heads and started walking on two legs. I mean, that's just evolution.
Okay. So he said an animal 2 to 3 feet tall with dark green or blackish scaly skin.
I mean, I'm saying this in jest. It's highly unlikely to be a gator, but that's probably the only logical definition. But the thing that goes against it is the kind of agility of this creature.
They can haul ass, though.
They can, but they not in the way that's being described here, of kind of haunched over, jumping up. They're like a highly mobile log, an Olympic log.
That sounds like a poop competition. Right, well, to help us along here, we have a couple of interpretations. So the first one is a sketch, and the second one is a sort of digitally produced image.
A digital mock-up.
Yeah, digital mock-up, exactly. If you could describe that to the listeners. This is what he said he saw.
Okay, so this is the first one. This is the sketch, and to be honest, this is kind of adorable.
You think that's cute?
It's kind of adorable. It's like a big frog with an alligator's back. Notably absent from this is the tail that was described as going into the being seen. There's no tail here, but artistic license. It's got kind of a frog's head. It's got some horns on the top, and the eyes are big, reptilian, and it's just kind of hanging out there, just like, sup, dude? Here I am.
Man's legs.
Got the legs of a man and the body of an alligator, the head of a frog.
What's an Ohio accent?
That. Everyone from Ohio speaks like that.
He had the legs of a man.
Ohio gozaimasu.
All right. And so secondly, let's look at the digital mock-up. And this one includes a sort of size comparison, the scale of a man and this thing. And I think you really get a feel for what it would have been like to see this thing.
Oh, okay. So this digital mock-up, okay? So they have gone to the lovely effort of sort of illuminating this like a car's headlights. And as you say, there is a size comparison. And it looks to be roughly, I would say this is kind of kappa sized. This is toddler sized. This is kind of up to your average human's waist, sort of 2 foot, 2.5 foot tall, 3 foot. It is, however, just a massive frog. Possibly a big toad, but that's all it is. It's just a frog walking on two legs. It is, if you will, imagine, listeners, Kermit the Frog. It's basically Kermit the Frog. A frog walking on two legs.
He's a bit hunched over.
He is. He needs to work on his posture a little bit, but he is a frog.
It's cute and funny. I mean, it's a far cry from the 1950s sighting.
Yeah, I mean, if
although from a distance, if you're quite far away.
He doesn't have any rolls of fat on his head, though.
It'd be hard to see. We have a side kind of profile of him here, so we didn't see him from the front.
True.
But no real nose to speak of. A long Terrence and Phillip slit-like mouth. From the front.
From the front, maybe, but you've got to ask the question: has anyone seen a frog? If they have, you're going to go, I think that was a big frog.
Exactly.
So yeah, this is the person who has mocked this up is clearly grounded in reality. So I'll give them that. But it's certainly less. Neither of these really match that description that we just got. Neither of them had a tail. Apart from that, they don't really match that first picture that we got in any way, shape, or form. I'd say these you would almost say, if we weren't tying these things together, they were separate cryptids on the loose.
Yeah, and the first guy, he said they were just like little people.
Yeah.
Almost. I mean, from far away, if you were up an embankment and you were looking down. And the businessman in the 50s said they were holding some kind of glow stick and there was chains and all sorts of things going on. But, these sightings are said to be connected.
Only one of them had the glow stick, though.
True.
To be fair, we're not seeing a group, we're just seeing an individual.
There's only one guy raving in that group. So a couple of weeks later, at around 6 a.m., 21-year-old patrolman Mark Matthews was driving home after a shift when he happened upon what he claimed to be the same creature. His sighting was around a quarter of a mile from Shucky's. In his headlights, he said he saw a creature of a similar description, 2 to 4 feet high, froggish in the face, and that the creature stuck out its forked tongue at him.
Okay, so now it's a bit more serpentine. Forked tongue. Either that or it's just kinky.
It's kneeling at the side of the road.
Yeah.
Sticking out your forked tongue at passing officers in uniform.
That's what I do when I'm in the States.
Matthews claimed the creature didn't show any signs of aggression, but he shot it anyway while walking along Kemper Road, just because he wanted to know what it was.
This was widely called the British strategy. What is that thing? I don't know. Shoot it and let's find out.
Why on earth? Like, you know when you hear like these Bigfoot stories, cryptid stories, like, okay, I get it. Maybe it's a hunter in a forest coming across some weird creature they've never seen. But like, I know like the idea of like shooting it because you've never seen what it is and no one will believe you. But I feel like, really? Would that be your reaction?
I mean,
take a picture maybe? Oh, but it was back in the 70s.
It all depends on if you take the position that human beings are the only sentient life. Because if it's not, and you've come across another sentient being, this is a terrible start to race relations that you've just made here.
Well, they're all sentient, even the frogmen.
Well, true. Intelligent life. Yeah. Interspecies relations, I should say, not race.
So, in an article, he claimed to have shot the frog creature 4 times, but it still managed to run off and got washed away down a river. In a later article, Matthew said he thought it was... Any guesses?
Crocodile?
An iguana.
An iguana? It's a genuine question, folks. I don't know. Are iguanas native to?
No.
No. And iguanas, my experience with them, they tend to be, they're like laptop sized.
They can get quite big.
Yeah, but this big, like
yeah, they can get pretty long.
A long iguana.
They can get quite big.
But can they get crocodile size? Because I mean, this is like 3 foot long.
Yeah, they can get 3 foot.
Ah, okay then. I'll give you that one.
An article in the April 1972 journal Herland reported Chucky and Matthews were partners, and that Chucky only told his closest supervisors as to not cause alarm in the local area. They said they were actively investigating, and had even sent a composite sketch to a zoologist at the Cincinnati Zoo, a guy called Parry Wakeman, who said it was unlike any possible animal, and that maybe it was, wait for it, an otter or a woodchuck.
What?
I have no clue.
But I mean, that does obviously raise the question of how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood.
Probably an Olympic log.
An Olympic log amount. But yeah, no, I mean,
a woodchuck.
That's an opinion, but the every single description that we've had paints him as somehow in the reptilian space.
But remember the chupacabra, where we looked at pictures of like dogs without fur who had like mange, and they started to look like really...
I mean, yeah, to be fair, if it was a shaved beaver...
Don't make eye contact with me and say that.
If it was a... What is it? Woodchuck or... I mean, a shaved woodchuck or an otter. I imagine at least otters might have greyish skin, maybe?
Maybe. I've not seen one. Should we Google?
Oh, okay. To be fair, I can see where that gentleman might be coming from.
I'll describe it to the listeners, and we'll also put it on the Instagram too. So this was a zoologist who was... Now he's not even really shaved. You know what?
It's a crew cut.
He's got the webbed toes. He does look like a weird little man.
There is something human.
There is?
There could be, you can see folds further back.
Yes.
Could be folds on his forehead in certain lights.
And the head is lighter than the body. You know what?
We've just solved it, haven't we?
Quite possibly. But there is more. There's more to go. So what
I'd like everyone to do now is please just go to your Google machine and type in shaved beaver and do some research for yourselves.
What about woodchuck? Should we look at a woodchuck?
Shaved woodchucks. Shaved morning woodchucks. It's less likely to be a woodchuck, but I can't find a shaved picture. It must be quite hard varmints to shave. Woodchucks are also groundhog.
Right. Okay. I did not know that. But this otter thing...
Don't leave that bit in. Someone's going to at me.
I'm leaving it in.
The most foremost expert on woodchucks in all of South Kakalaki is going to get in touch.
All right, so Parry Wakeman, the zoologist, he said that March was too cold for reptiles and amphibians alike, and although he was aware that there were species of frogs that could get to be absolute units elsewhere in the world, he did not think this was the case. So in August of 2016, Matthews, the second officer, came out with the truth, Chris. And if you haven't noticed, this is the case of the Loveland Frog cryptid.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a frog.
That's what everyone calls it. Some believe in it to this day. But in August of 2016, Matthews came out and he had to tell the truth.
And I think he's so brave for doing so. He should have come out much sooner. He shouldn't have been living his life that way.
He explained that he received a phone call from Shockey the night that he first saw the creature, explaining what he had seen, and he didn't believe in monsters. He knew that it was something else. He said, "Naturally, I didn't believe him." They were friends, by the way. But I could somehow tell from his demeanour that he did see something. We have a quote here. He said, "I know no one would believe me, so I shot it." Matthews said that he actually recovered the creature's body that he shot that night, put it in his trunk to show Shockey, to eliminate Shockey's fear. Shockey was living in fear. He'd saw an unknown beast and he had to patrol. He was freaked out, he couldn't get over it. So Matthews, being the good friend that he was, went out and hunted this thing down. So he calls Shockey, tells him to come, opens the trunk. It was a large iguana. It was missing its tail, which made it really difficult to recognize. The thing was already halfway dead anyway, he said, when I shot it, saying it looked like someone had released the animal because it grew too large or it had escaped and declined outside in the March weather. He said he loaded the body into the trunk of the police car and showed Shockey, who confirmed it was the same creature.
Ah, so a non-native species that has been released, grown bigger than its tank, and released into the wild, and then has had a hard time with the non-tropical weather of Miami, I suppose. We could say that. It's still kind of warm, but maybe not tropical warm.
Not iguana warm.
Not iguana temperature. And then has somehow lost its tail and then has become a bit of a shell of its former self. So what we're saying is it's a bit like the Chupacabra episode when we were looking at dogs infected with mange. Where or coyotes.
Sick, unrecognizable animal. But this is what Matthew says. Like, he straight up doesn't believe in monsters. He thought it was all ridiculous all along, but others have claimed to have sighted it while playing Pokemon Go as recently as, like, the last few years.
Sure it wasn't.
Matthews keeps coming out saying, nope, no such thing as a Loveland Frog. Nothing. Although Loveland has a frog as its mascot, they celebrate the Loveland Frog. They love the Loveland Frog. Matthews is like, nope, it's an iguana. I don't know why he's trying to cover up the truth, Chris. But he keeps coming out and he keeps denying the Loveland Frog lives in Loveland.
Where else would the Loveland Frog live but Loveland?
But okay, so official explanation from an officer who saw it and shot it and killed it and everything, okay, is that it's an iguana. If I saw an iguana without a tail, I'd still know I was looking at an iguana.
You would, but let's say it's dark. You're not expecting to see an iguana. Like, I can see why in the night you might be fearful of something. If it's kind of murky in the shadows, you don't know what it is. There's an unknown creature. I mean, I've been walking outside at night and I've seen a dog with really long, shaggy hair and thought that it was a Silent Hill 2 creature coming towards me. Yeah, it wasn't a Silent Hill 2 creature. It was just a dog that had very, very long hair.
But, right, what is the lifespan of an iguana? Because the man in the... I have a feeling it might be quite long.
Yeah, I think reptiles have relatively long lives, especially the larger reptiles.
Yeah, because, right, the sighting in the 50s, he described chains. Are we saying this was a chained exotic pet?
Well, I mean,
that escaped?
Possibly.
With a glow stick?
Well, I mean, it could have been sparking the chains.
What?
You know, you get chains and you...
Oh, you think he...
Yeah, maybe he was trying to start a fire.
Okay.
But, I mean, we do... Obviously, in the original sighting, there's 3 of them.
Yeah.
Ménage à trois. So...
Don't say that!
They don't have to necessarily have long lives because they can just reproduce. And maybe there's a whole, society, like, introducing a non-native fauna
Maybe.
to the environment, like bullfrogs in Australia. They just kept going and going and going. And now, Australia, the Prime Minister's a bullfrog.
So, Chris, what's your verdict? Loveland Frog, is he real? Is Matthews covering it up? People keep seeing it. Do you think it was iguanas? Do you think it was the same iguanas?
I don't think it's the same iguana in both the original case and the later case. Mm-hmm. The lifespan of an iguana is around 15 to 20 years, apparently. So it's unlikely to be. But like I said, if they're breeding, they're out there, it's highly likely. But you would have thought there'd be more sightings of this then. 2 very different cases, though. I feel like what the officers saw was probably iguanas.
Mm-hmm. But the first one?
I mean, iguanas, firstly, these things are wearing clothing, supposedly.
Apparently.
They're holding, reptiles have rather limited movement in the way that they can move. I don't think reptiles can put their arms above their heads.
I think an iguana can. They can stand on 2 legs if they're leaning. And also look up a picture of an iguana, they have these sort of spikes along the head, and if they had kind of like fallen through injury or sickness, and imagine if they were maybe dirty, they look darker.
Sure, I mean, they could be infected or something as well. They could have a parasite or something that's causing bloating to the chest, some kind of bizarre disease.
I feel like there could be something to it, but like you said, the first case and the later sightings are very different sightings.
Yeah.
The second case is almost a Dover demon sort of leaning on a barrier situation.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see from looking at some of these pictures of iguanas where you could get this type of thing from, but it's the size of them. That's the thing. It's the size. That's the, the original ones. They're pretty tall. They're chunky boys as well. I mean, it probably is iguanas. Probably is, but they're described in such a different way. But perhaps in the 50s, the gentleman who saw it originally, RH, wasn't as familiar with an iguana. So if you've got somebody trying to describe something that they've got no, internal reference point to, it could be a bit different. The first descriptions of elephants coming back from, India, Asia and stuff probably were absolutely bizarre.
And the Hartlepool French spy, we all know that story.
And we do. We'll don't screw the pooch on that one because we might cover that in another episode, maybe. Not today, though.
Thought I'd guess your episode for a minute. But yes, Chris, that is the story of the Loveland Frog. Another cryptid to put in the archives for us there. What are you settling on, though? Alien? Iguana? Or other?
Or massive frog?
Or massive cute frog man?
I mean, I think this is a fun type of cryptid that you get. It's just like they don't. There's no malice to it. It's not really out to do anything.
Not that we've yet discovered.
No,
I'm sure there's missing people in Loveland.
Because it never lets victims go.
Yeah.
But this is, a nice little cryptid that we've got here. But I think it's most likely an iguana. But those first pictures, the description's so different that I wouldn't rule out, grey activity, aliens. But then again, we also have to take a leap of faith and say that, well, and for that to be the case, we've got to believe in aliens, and which is more likely to be true, an escaped iguana or aliens, escaped iguana. But that makes it no fun.
And the ufologist, who, God bless him, he thought there might be an alien in Loveland, Ohio. He did say that there was a lot of sightings of UFOs around Ohio.
Well, he would say that.
Yeah, but he's rocked up to interview this businessman, and he's gone, oh yeah, he looks like he's well-dressed, well-mannered, he couldn't possibly lie or, mistake one thing for another. And I think he really tried to make it be greys. But maybe when he looked at his own drawing, he kind of went,
He's done that. He's probably a man after our own hearts.
Yeah.
To be honest. But yes, I think I'm probably going to go in the camp that this is some kind of escaped reptile. If it's not a iguana, it could be a shaved otter, a shaved large otter.
Now the otter, I think the zoologist was onto something.
I think so. Or it could also be a, I still think mutant croc.
Possibly. I mean,
gator. Sorry, gator.
This is a cryptid I want to believe in because it's so cute. Like, not the original sketch, but the big frog leaning on that barrier. Mm-hmm. It's so cute. It is. Do
you find frogs cute?
I do. Do you? There's lots of different types of frogs, though. And there's frogs that can die and come back to life and stuff. They're amazing.
Do they have to go into a cave for several days?
No, they go in mud. Oh, was that a Jesus joke?
It was.
Okay, that went right over my head. No, but they go inside of trees, they go in mud, and they go through a winter, basically dead, and they come out. It's kind of amazing. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't mind frogs.
I don't mind them. They don't tickle my fancy, but they also don't offend me.
No. Rather than their horrid brother's toad.
You only like ones with cucumbers and pensions for Uranus, I see. Okay. All right. Well, that was the case of the Loveland Frog, and I know we have listeners from Ohio. So if anyone is from there, we would love you to DM us your experiences. Have you seen it?
We would love to hear. Have you had a close encounter of the
frog kind?
We want to hear. And we want to know, out there in Ohio, is this the talk of the town? Do you talk about anything else but this? Is there
in Loveland? Definitely
in
not.
Loveland, let us know. We want to know.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for listening, Chris.
Thank you so much for regaling me with this story of the Loveland Frog creature.
You're welcome. And we will see you in 2 weeks' time, everyone. When Chris has a story to share with us.
Certainly do. And what a story it is. It's an unbelievable tale. I'll put it that way.
Looking at your face, I'm like, I actually believe you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much again. And enjoy the probably an AI song about frogs. Bye, everyone.
See you later, alligator.
Bye.
Loveland, they say there's a frog so big people run away like a mountain this big. They think it's a beast with a roar so loud, but it's just a frog hopping through the crowd. Oh, Loveland Frog, big old green delight. You ain't no monster, just a big frog in the night, chomping on flies beneath the moonlight, taking big leaps, causing a fright. Oh, Loveland Frog, big old green delight. You ain't no monster, just a big frog in the night, chomping on flies beneath the moonlight, taking big leaps, causing a fright. Oh, You ain't no monster, just a big frog in the night. So when you hear tales of a creature grand, remember it's a frog hopping across the land.